You said something to a mutual friend once, something about what was going on behind closed doors, and the friend tilted their head and said, "Really? That doesn't sound like them at all." That sentence, that one sentence probably hurt more than anything the narcissist ever did directly, because they didn't even need to be there. They'd already done the work. They'd already built the version of themselves that the world sees, warm, generous, charming, totally reasonable, and they built it specifically so that when you finally spoke up, no one would believe you. That's the part nobody warns you about, not the cruelty itself, the architecture around it. Here's what I keep coming back to every time I look at this pattern. The narcissist's favourite person to fool is everyone but you. You were never the target of the charm. You were the one person the charm was designed to protect them from. Let that settle for a second. The world gets the performance. You got the truth. And somehow, for years, that made you feel like the crazy one. So let's pull this apart. Because the gap between who they are in public and who they are with you, that's not accidental. Not even a little bit. The behavioural difference in public settings points to deliberate manipulation, keeping up a facade that looks totally normal to everyone watching. That's the clinical version. But what it actually meant in your life is this. They practice their public self the way an actor rehearses a role. Calculated, deliberate, consistent. You know that feeling. You're at a dinner party with them, and they're telling some story that has the whole table laughing, and you're sitting there watching it like, who is this person? Because 3 hours ago, before you left the house, it was something else entirely. It was cold. It was cutting. It was that tone you'd learned to brace yourself for. And then someone across the table goes, "You're so lucky to have them." And you smile and say nothing. Because what do you even say? Behind closed doors, everything shifts. The warmth disappears. What replaces it is indifference, criticism, or just that low-level emotional manipulation you got so used to you stopped noticing it. This is what you lived. The table at the dinner party didn't live it. They watched a performance built specifically for them. You got the version that comes out when the audience leaves. And here's the thing about that gap. It's not just confusing, it's weaponized. Narcissists know exactly what they're doing when they praise you in public and tear you down in private. It messes with you. You end up confused, distracted, obsessively trying to figure out what flips the switch. How to avoid the monster that shows up behind closed doors. That confusion. That's not a side effect. That's the point. When you're off balance, searching for explanations, trying to make the two versions of this person fit together, you're not watching them clearly. You're watching yourself, questioning yourself, doubting yourself. And while you're doing all of that, they're completely in control. That's why the public image isn't just about vanity, it's infrastructure. Think about how it actually works. The public version is carefully curated. Charm, confidence, warmth, success. Privately, controlling, critical, emotionally all over the place. And the reason that contrast exists is because the public image isn't self-expression. It's armor against being exposed. They're not charming in public because they're happy. They're charming in public because charm is the wall between them and the truth. Every warm moment in front of an audience is another brick in that wall. Every favourable impression a stranger forms is another layer of protection. Because if everyone thinks they're wonderful and you say otherwise, who does the room believe? I really want you to sit with that. The charm wasn't for the world's benefit. It was for theirs, and it was, quietly, against you. Narcissists treat relationships mainly as opportunities for self-enhancement. They surround themselves with people who admire them, and the process of charming, recruiting, maintaining all that approving attention, it's unending. Think about that word, unending. They are always working, always performing, always investing energy into how they appear, because the moment that image slips, there's nothing left between them and the truth of who they actually are. And you, the person closest to them, you saw past it. Maybe not all at once, maybe slowly, piece by piece, in moments you tried to explain away, but you saw it. That's why you became a problem. Not because you were difficult, not because you were too sensitive, not because something was wrong with you, but because you were close enough to see what the performance was covering up. What looks like innocent charisma from a distance can be the beginning of something else entirely. And once the charm fades for the person closest to them, the real version starts showing through. It shows itself to whoever's closest, and whoever's closest becomes the keeper of a truth the narcissist can't afford to have spoken out loud. So what do? They build a world where, if you ever speak, no one believes you. And it's not random. It's not just happening by accident. It's specific and it's methodical. And once you see the method, you really can't unsee it. Communal narcissists, and I find this one particularly unsettling, present themselves as caring, selfless, deeply invested in helping others. They become the generous one, the community pillar, the person who shows up for everyone. They volunteer, they compliment people publicly, they offer help loudly and visibly, not because it brings them genuine joy, but because every act of public goodwill is a deposit into an account they'll eventually need to draw from. When you speak up, and this part matters, the people around you will remember every visible act of kindness. They will not remember what they never saw. And that disconnect is what creates this maddening situation where outsiders are genuinely baffled by what you're describing, because it just doesn't match the person they know. Insiders experience the emotional toll. Outsiders see the highlight reel. Insiders, that's you. That's always been you. And insiders have something outsiders don't. Actual evidence. You have the texts. You have the memory of specific moments. You have the record of what they said when no one else was listening. But evidence means nothing in a courtroom where the jury has already made up its mind. Not only are you dealing with the private reality of what happened, you're also up against a narrative they've been carefully building. One that makes you look like the bad guy while they look calm, collected, totally reasonable. And then here's the part most people miss. They don't even have to do anything else. They just keep being wonderful to everyone around you. And the contrast between their public composure and what you're visibly going through does the rest of the work for them. You look reactive, they look stable. You look like the problem, they look like the saint. It's elegant, honestly, in the most devastating possible way. The charm serves two purposes. Sometimes it's just about craving attention and admiration. That need is real and it's constant. But it also functions as a protective net. Every person they've won over is a potential defender, a future alibi. Someone who will shake their head and say that doesn't sound like them when you try to describe what your life actually looked like from the inside. I want you to pause here for a second, because I know what some of you are feeling right now. You're feeling the specific grief of being the only one who knew, of carrying a truth that the people around you simply wouldn't receive, and that's a particular kind of loneliness. Not just being hurt, but being dismissed for naming it. You are not imagining things. You are not too sensitive. You are paying attention. And what you were paying attention to was real. The world got the curated version. You got something else. Over time, people close to a narcissist start to see through it. The charm erodes. The manipulation becomes visible. The fragile structure underneath starts showing. You weren't broken down. You were woken up. Slowly, painfully, at great cost, but woken up. And now we get to the part that actually changes things. Most people think the answer is exposure. Get everyone else to finally see what you saw. Make the public record match the private reality. And I get that instinct, I really do. When you've been carrying the truth alone that long, exposure feels like justice. But here's what the narcissist understands that most people in this situation don't. Yet. Their power was never in the charm itself. It was in your belief that their version of reality was more credible than yours, that the person everyone loved couldn't possibly be the person you experienced, that maybe, if everyone else saw something different, the problem must be you. The moment you stop needing the world to validate what you lived, that's when the whole structure collapses, not because everyone suddenly sees the truth, but because you stop requiring them to. And that right there is everything. Because you were never the crazy one. You were the informed one. The person closest to the flame is the one who knows it burns. Everyone else just admired the light. That gap between their public face and private behaviour, that's what caused the rift in your sense of reality. And that rift is what they needed to survive. Your confusion was their oxygen. Your self-doubt was the gap they walk through every single time. When you close that gap, when you trust what you witnessed over what they performed, you take back something they spent years stealing from you. Your perception, your clarity, your grip on what actually happened. Here's what I need you to hear before we wrap this up. The fact that no one believed you does not mean you were wrong. It means they were skilled. There's difference, a real, life-changing difference. People would rather believe that you're to blame than admit they might have been fooled. That says something about them, not about the truth of what you lived. The narcissist's favourite audience is everyone but you, because you're the one person the performance couldn't hold. You watched long enough to see the seams, and you're the one person whose clear eyes they could never afford to have looking back at them. They built a whole world to protect themselves from that moment. The moment you stopped flinching, you were never too much. You were never the problem. You were simply the one person in the room paying close enough attention to tell the difference between a performance and a person. That clarity is yours. It always was. And no amount of charm they showed anyone else can take it from you now.